This is Bleav in Buckeyes. I'm Bryant with All-American quarterback Chimdi. Chekwa. This show is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Chim, we got our beaks a little bit wet with a week of football, a couple practices and shorts. And then we send our guys away for spring break, man. What's going on, man? But how you doing, Chim? How's life over there on the, I guess, north side of Columbus?
Yeah, north of Columbus. Yeah, life is good, man. You know, I was able to experience some cold weather, some nice weather. All right, some wind, some strong winds, some rain, some hail, and then some cold weather again, right? All in like a couple days, man. It's been, an interesting time, man. But yeah, football is here. I like the fact that the players got to get started and then get a little break, get away from football a little bit. You know, I think every guy is training on their break because, I think Coach Mick and those guys on staff are going to put those guys back to work when they get back. So they can't actually fully break. Some guys will fully break. You know how that goes, right? But I like the way it's kind of broken out. They get started, get their minds right, get a little bit of break, and then they're back kind of hitting the ground running. So
I don't like it, man. Let my guys have some spring break, man. This might jump on a cruise or something for the week, man. These guys got to stay in shape. If not, when they come back, it would show. We throw them hammers and pads on, and you might not make it through that phase one if you watch last episode's show. But let's get into it a little bit, man. Obviously, we're gearing up for the spring, and we know there's a lot riding on this spring as we get ready to make our 26th season push. Obviously, we're still foaming at the mouth. We expect national champions here at Ohio State, and we got one a couple years ago. Obviously, last year didn't quite go our way. But now we're gearing back up to kind of make this push, make this run of things. And I don't know, I just thought it'd be interesting kind of because when we go into it, you start looking at who are we bringing back? We know we got Julian Sayin coming back for year 2. We expect him to take this huge leap. We went into it once again last episode. We know defensively we're going to look a lot different, probably 3 or 4 first rounders in that defense that we're losing. We got to replace those guys. But one thing, the biggest thing, we was able to retain our coach, and Matt Patricia, and his encyclopedia as being a defensive coordinator and how he could take his guys and make whatever work in any situation. But, looking at essentially the most veteran bunch to return as a unit is most likely our offensive line being led in year.
So they're the most veteran bunch. Now, if you ask fans, they didn't really like how the offensive line performed in some of the biggest moments in some of the biggest games. So from your perspective, as an offensive lineman, former offensive lineman, all right, a guy who could still put his hand in the dirt. Okay, you still put his hand in the dirt, come off the ball. What do you think about our group and the competition this spring and, how it plays going into the fall?
And just for the record, I can put my hand in the dirt if I'm going uphill. You get it? Cry a little bit. So uphill. But no. But just like last year, I think overall we had a pretty good unit. And I think it was deep, but maybe even too deep. I felt like last year going into the season, we had about 8 or 9 guys that could do multiple things. And Coach Day kind of went on this play here like, hey, we got to get multiple guys ready to do multiple things. So when it comes down to it, we can play our best 5 guys no matter the position. And I think, and essentially, I Bleav it really worked out. I think overall we had a pretty strong year. Did the Indiana game leave us wanting a little bit more? Yeah, probably. Did the Miami game? Yes, definitely. But I could kind of go into a whole spew if you gave me this whole show. We get the film out on how we can help my guys out when you start playing against elite pass rushers like the Miami Hurricanes had on their unit. So yeah, they have some things to work on. But overall, I think we got a lot of good players back. When you start looking at from 4 starters returning, starting at left tackle, Austin Sherfield, our center returning, Carson Hinsman, left guard, Luke Montgomery, right tackle, Phillip Daniels. Those guys had fantastic years. They were solid all year. They was healthy for most of the season. They played as a unit. You could count on them week in and week out to kind of go out there and essentially and really get the job done. So I'm excited to kind of get that group back. At the right guard position, we got a little competition. That's needed, right? We got Gabe Van Sickle kind of standing in there and playing some role. We got to see him late last season. He was able to do a lot of things really well. We got Jasper Dilla, who's also playing some center, probably that backup center role and fighting for that right guard spot with Van Sickle there. he's also another guy that did a lot of really good things last season. So, waiting to see how things can kind of pan out and shake there. But then we got more guys, right? We seen Ian Moore step up at the biggest stage, go out there and play against that dominant pass rush against the Miami Hurricanes. And he fit the part once Austin kind of went down, got nicked up a little bit there.
Ian Moore. Okay, so I Saraville went down. Ian Moore stepped in, played solid in a big game against real talent. Mm-hmm. I saw Bain in some workouts turning the corner on the bag, and I said, "Ooh, that's some." Now I understand. Now I understand what those guys were up against. And he held his own. How does he fit into this? Like, is he a swing guy, or do you see him stepping in and being able to lock down a position? Given that, you mentioned Phillip Daniels had a solid year, Saraville had a solid year. What does Ian Moore fit into this this competition from your perspective?
I like him as a swing tackle, to be honest. I know there's been talks about, do you take Phil and you put him at guard? And obviously Austin came on the scene playing Moss position. I think his first couple of starts for the offensive line at Ohio State was at the left guard position a couple of seasons ago. But to me, if you want to do what's best for those guys and for me, best for the team, the mentality, and those guys have to like the decisions that are being made. And for Austin Sherfield, his best ability to get to the next level is him dominating at the left tackle position, right? Everybody wants a left tackle. Everyone's going to look at that position and try to draft that position first.
Is he a left
happy
tackle?
There.
Is he a left tackle?
I think he's a left tackle. I mean, after this last season, who gave him? He didn't have many issues, right? I mean, Bain gave everyone's issues, right? Bain and Methador, right. They gave everyone issues. So it's not like, we're not going to make it some type of anomaly like, they got beat. If you look in the NFL, the best left tackle in the game gets beat in known passing situations. It's just how it goes. Those guys are just that good. So that's nothing new. So if your guy could do it and improve it for essentially 12 games before going out with injury, I think he's your guy. So now if he is seeking like, well, look, we're really struggling at this guard position. I don't think we got anyone that could do it. Maybe for the sake of the team, he'll make that decision to go in there. But that's just not the case here. You already got Luke Montgomery at the left guard position who's been doing it for a couple seasons now. Right guard, we got very talented guys that need to compete, that need to kind of figure out how to shake out and earn themselves a role. So if you're Ian Moore, to me, you stay ready. You stay available. You let these guys play it out. This is most likely their last seasons, on the offensive line unit. You take one more year to learn. Well, this is, and I guess everybody's ultimate goal is to get to the NFL. I think that's the known thing, right? Yeah. There's no hiding that, no one should be saying, hey, I'm in school now because I just love school. I just want to get back to That's just not, there are guys like that, but the guys that actually are playing on Saturdays, most of them have a different mindset. They want to get to that next level. You're not hurting yourself by not playing as an offensive tackle right away. You step in one season, you play well, you show that you have the athletic ability and build to do it. They'll take you right off the board. You see guys get drafted off the offensive line all the time who rarely play. I think the Cincinnati Bengals, they got a tackle who played like maybe a half a season for Georgia, and they took him like in the first round. So, things like that happens. You just have to be your best self. When your time comes, you come out and you perform well, you do it. So to me, having Ian Moore in that swing tackle position, we're not losing a thing. We're a better unit because of it, and we got guys playing at their best position. That's another thing that's always important when you want to build cohesion as a unit. Yeah. That guys are doing the things that they want to do and they feel most comfortable doing as they kind of get ready to gear up for stuff.
Yeah, you still got guys like Carter Lowe, Deontay Armstrong. Yeah. We lost one of the Armstrong twins, but you still got those guys too. So it's going to be interesting to see how that position continues to develop. I do believe that is one of the stronger positions. Offensive line is always interesting because when a team loses, there's a good chance that the offensive line is going to get a good amount of blame. When the team loses, you know what I'm saying? Like, if there's a loss that happens, just know that the offensive line, when we start blaming individuals, there's going to be some coaching blames, and there's going to be some offensive line blaming happen, first and foremost. Yep. Then we'll figure out who else is in this mix. But that does not mean that we don't actually have some guys that can get it done. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unit shapes out in terms of who's the starter, who's the swing guys. But I do agree that there is a strength. I know fans don't believe it, but it's a strength
No,
going
but
into
it's
the
a
season.
strength. It's a strength you have to use, and like I said, sometimes we get so enticed by all the wide receivers and the talent we got at quarterback and the different things we expect our running backs to be able to do. But if it's one thing I could like kind of poke at Coach Day at, and obviously he called the plays when we got into the playoffs. Like, you got to start up front. You get your guys get them comfortable, and start pushing some guys around, and then everything else will work off of that. I feel like sometimes Coach Day, he kind of calls, and I almost feel like he calls home run plays with the run. Like, I'm gonna call this run play. If we don't get 15 yards, then we know we're gonna shy away from that and kind of get back to some of those quick passes. And now it would be our run game. But as an offensive line, you just want to get off on guys. You want to hit them. You want to get some rhythm in that. Get them pushing around. And then when it's a non-passing situation, you just feel better about the whole situation and what you could do against your opponent. So get those guys going. Get that team. This should be the unit, right? If we want to be a national championship team, I feel like it always starts up front for any football team. But I feel like we have a unit here that we could really lean on these guys to make things right. And then after we lean on them, run it a little bit, then we throw it over top to Jeremiah Smith for the touchdown. And he'll be happy as well.
Right. And look, man, defenses who have weapons have an opportunity to use scheme to their advantage. I thought Indiana did a good job with their weapons on the defensive line to have a lot of games and different things up front that made it hard for Ohio State to pick up. This is preparation. And I thought what Miami did was get the matchups that they want. Right now, you could say, our offensive line needs to play better, et cetera, whatever. But you get your best pass rusher on the guard who's starting for the first time, right? It's the matchup that you want, right? And at the end of the day, this game is about matchups. And when you have first-round talent on your team at a defensive end position, you get them lined up against a guard, like or you get them lined up against a tackle, one-on-one. I mean, these guys, they go top 5 for a reason because they win. They win in one-on-one. So, yeah, I mean, it's a part of it. Like, you can have a solid unit, but it still takes the right approach to make sure that unit performs to their best ability. So we'll see. New offensive coordinator in town. I feel positive about the approach to the run game and the structure of the offense to be able to support what everybody does best.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And so we'll see. Obviously, they put the pads on. Like I said, you can't really judge a lineman until you put the pads on, right? You kind of get to that phase of getting in and out the huddle. Yeah. But it's time to put the pads on, and we'll really see what our guys look like against our Buckeye defense as we kind of start to, play a little real football going into later this week. But hey, chill, let's get into it, man. Pro Day. Pro Days this week for our guys that are taking their opportunities to play on Sundays from the Ohio State team. And obviously, we saw some great things at the Combine. We saw Arville Reese and the Styles brothers run very fast and do some great things and show off their athletic ability. But going into this Pro Day this week, I mean, who do you have in mind as someone that could really show out and maybe take a step in a jump on people's draft boards due to their performance this week?
Yeah, I think Max Clare is a guy, and I don't know exactly what all he's going to do, but you start looking at the tight ends in this class. You got Sadiq, you got the tight end out of Oregon, who's is the clear number one guy, right?
Yeah, right.
But outside of that, depending on what draft projection you look at, depending on what top 5 tight end list you look at, guys are shuffled around. And Max Clare has been a really good player. Starting at Purdue, coming to Ohio State. I mean, I think he has the talent to impress, but he just has to display it. He has to show it. Coaches are going to want to see him in person and see what he can do. So I think he's well positioned to take a big jump. I'm curious to see what the rest of the group does. Obviously, guys who performed at the Combine, guys like Sonny Styles, the Styles brothers, the Styles family, right? They don't even need to show up to Pro Day, right? We already know what they can do. It's also going to be interesting. I'm not certain what underclassmen are going to do Pro Day, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm hearing Julian Sayin would throw. Yeah, I think he's going to throw for the wide receivers at tight end. So that'll be someone that they're comfortable with at least.
Yeah, Julian Sayin throwing would be cool. I would like to see and it's probably not going to happen. But I would like to see Jeremiah Smith line up and run routes with the guys. I don't think Cardinal Tay's going to do much at Pro Day. But Max Clary's out there running routes. If Jeremiah Smith steps out there and runs some routes as well, just to have a group, right? You don't want one guy doing all the drills, right? Because that gets retired, right? So they have a group because that'll put on a show for the scouts, right? They'll all see what they can potentially get if they tank the season, right? So that'll put on a pretty good show. But yeah, Julian Sayin throwing the ball. Scouts are going to be watching him as well. They're going to be paying attention to him. They're going to want to get a good look at him. Another guy who's going to be potentially positioned to be a first-round pick next year as well. Ohio State Pro Day really, it's a packed house. You get GMs, you get head coaches, you get staff. They get to come in and look at the guys out there looking to get drafted this year. They get a peek at guys like Julian Sayin, who are going to be draft eligible the next year as well. Get to see him in person and talk to him. So it is kind of an event. And there's going to be a lot of talent being showcased at that event.
Yeah. Because, no, that's how you get your team better. You want to get your team better at Pro Day, you show up and see what the Ohio State Buckeyes have to offer because they can just do so many things. I think it'd be interesting to see Katie McDonald run a 40 because I just think it's always fun watching big guys run 40, man. It's just, that's what we, it's fun. It's like one time in our life we get to run a 40-yard dash. It's like really in this period here that it matters. So it'll always be interesting to see him. But like I say, like you say, we never know what guys gonna actually do when you get here. And a guy that we've been having some discussions about, I don't think he didn't do much at the combine, but obviously he's rated as potentially being a top 10 pick, and that's Caleb Downs. Coming in at the safety position, we know his record, his book, what he's known for. But I guess the question is, does he need to do something at Pro Day to kind of show his ability, right? They have some questions, people questioning his knee and is he healthy and things of that nature. And then secondly, on top of that, Chum, how high do you really draft a safety when it comes to, you evaluate guys and you want to get better as a team?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not necessarily a guy that thinks you need to go really high for safety in general, right? In general, you could probably find a really good player in the mid rounds that can be a long time starter for you. And there's certain positions where you really got to have a guy. I got to have a defensive as a corner. I got to have a defensive end because if not, I'm covering for way too long. You know what I'm saying? That's just the reality of the situation. But at every position, there are certain guys that are just like a tier above the rest in terms of what they've shown on film they're capable of doing. And it's interesting because Caleb Downs is one of those individuals that, depending on who you ask, you can get some mixed messages. There's some guys that say, look, he's a generational talent at the safety position. You got to get him. Best player available. I don't care if he's a safety. He's a top 5 pick. And then the other guys that say, there's nothing I see that's super elite. He's a really good player. He's likely going to be a really good player in the NFL and a starter. But there's nothing that makes him like a super must-have guy at the top of the draft. I think for Caleb Downs, he's one of those guys that showed you on film, how elite he is. And it's because he has the combination of, the physical gifts in terms of it's not just straight line speed. It's just the ability to close that space and go make a play, and the ability to cover as well. And you can tell that he also is a high IQ guy who really knows how to anticipate and react and go make a play on the ball. And what you see today in defense, and if this was a few years back, I may have a little bit different perspective. But what you see today in defense and what's been successful defensively, you look at the Seattle Seahawks, how they play the split safety defense, and they're able to disguise what they're doing. And some of those guys who do multiple things become so important because they can disguise, they can do so many things, and it makes it so hard for the offense to react. With that, the way defense has shifted in that direction, when you put Caleb Downs in the middle of that type of defense, it enables you to do that at such an elite level that, to me, it's not just the position. It's what he can do at the position that legit that makes him that top-level pick and anchor a defense for a long time. And if you can get that type of positional value, I don't care where he's drafted, you get that guy as high as possible because that changes what you can do for your defense long term.
Yeah, no, and those are great points because when it comes down to the draft, like yes, you have to check the box. You're talking about first round guys. Check the box. You check this box as being an athlete, right? There's no question unless you're a quarterback or something. Someone might let you slip a little bit on a tad bit of athleticism if you just got that firearm or whatever. But you have to check the box. You have to be this type of athlete. And so once you kind of check that box, what I think he already has done, okay, what type of football player is he, right?
Yeah.
The true freshman leading a Nick Saban's defense and tackles, coming to Ohio State. We could argue the last 2 seasons having the number 1 defense in the nation. If not, they're right there, right? All being led and everyone pointing to Caleb Downs and what he brings as a leader. And then the third thing you check is is he a student of the game, right? Does he like playing football? Is this something he does because it's just something he does? Or does he really go about learning the game and just knowing as much as possible? You check all 3 of those boxes. So to me, he's a guy that, you'll see it all the time. Like, okay, why draft an offensive lineman in the top 5 pick? Well, because I have a left tackle now for the next 10 seasons. Right. I don't have to worry about that position anymore. I know I got this guy. He's capable. He'll be able to do it. He'll be there for 10 years. I feel like you kind of get that same type of feel out of Caleb Downs. He would be the leader of our defense for the next 10 seasons. He'll come in. He'll do multiple things. He could play safety. He could cover guys. He could step into the box, play some linebacker, make tackles for loss. He'll be able to do this a great handful of things that it's going to take for us to be a good defense. So, yeah, we're going to draft this guy, like you say, as high as possible. I'm looking at teams like the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they got the number 10 pick, who we know struggle year in and year out on the defensive side of the ball. We know what they got in Joe Burrow and the wide receivers they have down there. But we know that they struggle defensively year in and year out. You bring in a guy like Caleb Downs to change the culture of what it means to play defense for your team and who's going to be the leader on the field. That's what he brings to the table. So I think you do, you move up. Yeah. You take a safety down.
The most interesting one to me is the Cleveland Browns. And to me, it's interesting because they have clear needs: offensive lineman, a receiver, and they can get that receiver at 6. I think also a Buckeye and Carnell Tate. Like they can solve for that early on. But he could also get drafted by somebody else, or they could decide, depending on what they look at on the draft board, they may say, look, we can get a receiver a little bit later. I think there's some decent receivers that you can get at different times in the draft this season. So if they, and they're also a team that really can benefit from just getting the best player available. Let's just get the best player available. It's a high pick, like you mentioned. We pick a guy here, he could be our starter for the next 10 seasons. Let's get the guy that we love. And that guy could be Caleb Downs at that position. I know they have a safety. They gave another Buckeye, Ronnie Hickman, the tender. But it's not like locked down. He still can end up somewhere else if somebody gives him an offer. The Browns have to make a decision if they want to match it or not. And they also hired a new defensive coordinator. And this defensive coordinator, I think, is going to add a little bit more split safety defense, a little bit more nuance to the defense, where when you bring in a guy like Caleb Downs and you do more defense, I think the more you do defensively, the more value he has because he can do more. I also think he was a great college player. I think when he gets to the NFL, his value is shown even more because the decisions on defense are so fast, and you got to make those decisions quicker, and you got to be able to trigger faster and make that play quicker. And you got everybody around you making decisions fast and being fast around you as well. Not that Ohio State defense wasn't fast, but in the NFL, everybody's good on defense. I think it's just an intriguing thing to see who says, look, we just need to take the best player available, and that guy is a safety in Caleb Downs. I think he may go before the number 10 pick. So it'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, but pro day this week, obviously we'll be we're gonna have some worries about the top performers because that's what we do here, and we'll let you know what people do and what they brought to the table. But you brought up one thing. You brought up Browns, my Browns, And what we gonna do? I'm gonna tell you right now. Wherever the right decision to make, we're not gonna make that decision. I can just tell you that right now. Wherever the thing, like a smart team would probably do this. We're gonna do something completely opposite because that's what the Cleveland Browns do. But you brought up wide receiver, and we got to shout out our guy Jaxon Smith-Njigba. This is becoming the highest wide receiver in the game, signing with the Seahawks. He's having a pretty good year, man. You win a Super Bowl. You have a lead the league in reception yards, win a Super Bowl, and then you become the highest paid wide receiver in the game with $168 million contract for the next 4 years. Man, wide receiver you, right? I mean, is there any question?
Wide receiver. Yeah, Jaxon Smith-Njigba is impressive. I think he's going to start changing the game for receivers, man. The way he runs routes, like he gives you no tell. He gets in and out of his breaks without you knowing that he's about to break, and he doesn't have to drop his hips. He just runs these routes. And you're gonna see a lot of receivers. Not everybody can do it, but you're gonna see a lot of receivers, young, start to try to develop that same type of skill set. But yeah, very impressive. You got Carnell Tate going into the draft. Another guy's gonna be a high paid receiver. Ohio State just continues to deliver in terms of the receiver category. And then he's not a Buckeye, and I don't know if he's gonna be a Buckeye, but I saw Marvin Harrison's little brother.
Jet Harrison. Yep.
The number one player. I know number one receiver in the class of 2028 as of now. So we'll see. Maybe one of the next Buckeye greats here.
Yeah, it's funny. Marvin used to say, like, my little brother, he was not playing. I watched some clips, and yeah, there was some very impressive clips at any level to make. Yeah, man. But I don't know, man. Obviously, we'll keep bringing you guys Ohio State news. There's no question about who wide receiver you is. Good luck, LSU. You guys have been doing great, but it's our time to shine in that category. Yeah, man. So that's our show for the week. Obviously, going to next week, we have Pro Day. We have some practices and pass. We're trying to see who's getting into that phase 2 of things and showing that they could take it from helping the shorts, do it with the pass on. But who's just that guy that's impressing everyone due to their physicality once they kind of get it going here in spring ball? We'll be bringing that to you guys here on Bleav with Buckeyes. Hey, last week I made a prediction that our basketball team would be getting ready for the Sweet 16 this week. Unfortunately, I was wrong. But as the Big Ten as a conference, we did get 6 teams on to the Sweet 16. So that's the number 1 conference in ball. Please check out FanDuel if you're placing your bets. Just bet big. Ohio State loses down, but just continue to bet Big Ten, and you still be up. I think that's how it works, man. So check out FanDuel for your bets. As always, Chim, follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Tune in to the FanDuel Network to watch our show live. Not live, but watch the replay of our show. And we continue to do our thing. And as always, with a nice OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.